You're watching the Randy and Christa Show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is News That Makes You Healthier. Today we're talking about raising healthier children. Randy, I'm very excited to introduce you to my friends. We have Katie, aka the Wellness Mama. She is an avid blogger. I mean, this woman has 200,000 hits to her website every day, 250,000 Facebook followers, and she's really changing lives with the information she's putting out there.
Yeah, that's a lot of Facebook followers. That's more than me.
That's a little more than you, and 5 kids under age 7. So she runs a tight ship.
Wow.
Let's bring Katie on.
Katie, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So how is it you have 7 or 5 kids under the age of 7? A couple of twins in there?
No twins. They're all about 18 months apart. So they're best friends, but not twins.
Oh, that's
well,
awesome.
Good. Okay, so healthy kids, this is your topic. You blog about it. Tell us, this is your passion. I mean, what's your main message to parents?
I'm a firm believer that parents are the ones that are going to help the next generation fix all the problems we have in our food supply. And for me, it started when my first child was 2 weeks old, and I had a follow-up doctor's visit after he was born. And I was sitting there nursing my baby and reading a magazine. And the magazine says that this generation is going to be the first one with a shorter life expectancy than their parents. And I'm looking down at this tiny baby, and I was like, that's not good enough. And now we've got kids eating 500 calories a day of sugar, which is almost 31 teaspoons of sugar a day in their developmental years. We've got 11% of kids being diagnosed with ADHD. A third of kids are either overweight or obese, and we're losing our real food system, and we're losing the idea of what real food is. And I feel like so many kids are being raised without even understanding that. So that's my passion, is helping empower parents to really teach kids how to live a healthier lifestyle so that in the future, the next generation doesn't have to be bound by these statistics anymore.
Okay, good.
Love that.
I have a 12-year-old, and I'm guilty of not giving him great habits as far as vegetables and things like that.
Taking him to Subway.
And now trying to get him to eat better is tough. And in fact, like with my 22-year-old, we just waited till he was about 16, 17, and now he loves vegetables and eats great. So I definitely want to ask you, what's the technique on transitioning kind of somewhat of a poor diet to a healthy diet?
That's a great question. It's been a journey for me too, because with my first child, I didn't know everything I know now. So he was the one that had to experience the transition with us. And we basically just created some guidelines in our house how we deal with food with our children, not rules, because I don't feel like it's anything that should be enforced with a punishment. It's not good to have those emotional ties with food. But we really try to tell our kids, we don't complain about food. They don't always have to eat if they're not hungry, if they truly don't like something, but they can't complain about it. So we try to teach them food is for nourishment first, and secondly for enjoyment. But it's not just there as a hobby. We don't just eat because it's fun. And so if they don't like a particular food, they're not forced to eat it. But they
so your kids, your kids are pretty much well trained. I mean, because they've been doing this. This is all they know, right?
Yes, but it is a slow, loving process, especially with 2-year-olds who are stubborn. It has their moments, but it's true. And I think the other side of that is not letting food be a reward. I know a lot of parents use food to bribe for grades or for athletic performance or for getting homework done. And I know as a kid, my parents were pretty good, but there were like birthdays or any fun activity, there was unhealthy food. And it creates that tie in your head that when you're happy and when you're experiencing good times, you're eating junk food. And even though it's just that subconscious thing, kids can then turn to unhealthy food when they're upset to try to experience those happy times. So we try not to reward with food or punish with food. So to avoid having emotional connections with food.
I think that's the platform right there, and not enough people talk about it, that it's your perspective and relationship with food, and it starts with having a healthy relationship. So I love that you led off with that. Yes. So what if they don't like something and they're hungry, you'll give them something else?
No, our strategy is that we explain to them, even from a young age, that taste buds are very capable of changing, and you can learn to like something after you try it about 10 times. So if they truly don't like something, we just tell them, oh, okay, well, that's great. You only have to try it a few more times, and your body's going to learn how to like it. So to start, especially with the little ones, we'll just put one bite, literally one bite of each food on their plate. So they might get one piece of broccoli and one piece of chicken and one piece of sweet potato, and literally one bite. So they only have to try one bite of each thing, and then they can ask for more of whichever they liked. But that way it's not a huge amount of food that's so overwhelming to a 2-year-old mind that they can't even fathom eating it. but they've tried it and they're learning to like these vegetables without it being like a forced huge mountain to climb.
So in your cabinet or pantry or whatever, there's no goldfish or Doritos or Rice Krispie treats or anything like that. Interesting. Because see, also for parents, I think it's really good because I allow a few of these things like goldfish, for example, right? Because it's seafood, those little goldfish things. But the thing is, if I had to do it all over again, I would have been strict with my young one. But it's great to not have those things in the house because then I don't have to overeat them at 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night.
The Twinkie story. What about Katie?
A lot of times. Oh, sorry, Krista. Go ahead.
Oh, I want to hear what you had to say, but. What about when they go to birthday parties and they're out in the world and most of their friends aren't eating like this?
You have to let them have cake there, right?
Well, I think a lot of times we don't give kids enough credit. This whole mindset in our country of like there's kids meals that are basically just junk food options. Well, you can go to a restaurant and an adult can order a really healthy meal and all the kids options are macaroni and cheese and chicken fingers. We create this idea that kids can't eat healthy foods. And so from early ages, I've just really tried to teach our kids why foods are healthy or why foods might not be healthy and explain to them that carrots have, which vitamins carrots have and which vitamins tomatoes have and let them understand it. And they love to learn that. And by about 4 or definitely by 5, they'll start asking, is this healthy? What's in this? What part of my body does this help?
So tell me this to Krista's question then. If they go to a birthday party, are you saying on their own, they just may not be attracted to the cake or the ice cream or whatever?
That is usually how it happens. I've got one with food allergy, so for him, I really do have to have a firm, no, you can't have that. But for the others, I'm trying to let them learn to own it themselves because I realize when they're 16 and certainly when they're adults, I can't control their food anymore, and I wouldn't want to try at that age. So I'm trying to let them take a little bit of autonomy now and understand that. And they've a few times chosen to eat the cake and the ice cream or the pizza, and they usually find out their stomach hurts or they get a headache or they don't feel good, and they learn to connect that. And usually they'll make healthy choices or they'll just try one bite and to try it, but they don't go eat a whole piece of cake.
Were you raised this way?
My mom was very health conscious, but I think the ideas of health were different back then. And she was lactose intolerant. So we were raised with quite a bit of soy, which I don't do at all with my kids. But there was always a focus on trying to make healthy choices. So that part was definitely there.
Okay, with 5 little ones in your house, right? Under the age of what, 7? Mm-hmm. Okay, so so-called cold season. So do you experience less of that? Less runny noses, less problems, like all the other moms?
I think so. For the most part, they don't get sick hardly at all. And if they do, it's maybe they have a runny nose for half a day and then it resolves itself.
Wow.
I do think that's partially their diet, especially because with 5, if they got something, it could spread like wildfire. And not to say they never get a mild illness, but the younger 3 have never had to go to the doctor for antibiotics or anything.
Isn't that amazing? I think most people think they're little kids, they're going to get sick, it's just how it goes. So you're really busting a lot of these myths that if you're everything you do with diet builds the immune system, and therefore they don't have to get sick.
Yeah.
So are they gluten-free and dairy-free? Is this kind of like a paleo diet, or what is it?
It's similar in some aspects. We're definitely gluten-free. A couple of the kids can tolerate raw dairy really well, and so I'll let them have some raw dairy. I have one who was a C-section and has a lot of gut issues from the antibiotics and the steroids he got at birth. And so for him, we don't do any dairy or grains or soy or sugar, and just until we really, really build his gut back up.
Well, they can digest. I guess little kids at that age, they can still digest cow's milk, right? They have that enzyme too.
But
I think you lose it at about 9 years old or something.
Some people never have it, but this is a really interesting point that you bring up, Katie, because I'm finishing writing this prenatal book, and when it comes out in April. When you have a C-section, I think that's important because a lot of moms don't know this. That's the child's first exposure to bacteria, and so if you have a C-section, they're not getting that, and their gut health can be compromised. So can you tell us, for our viewers that are moms who have had C-sections, what should you do to repopulate the good flora and to kind of reverse the adverse effects of a cesarean?
Yeah, your book is going to be such awesome help because I didn't know a lot of this before I had a C-section, because in my mind I was always going to have natural births, and then placenta previa had another plan for me. So it's true, they don't get the benefit of a vaginal birth and culturing their gut bacteria through the birthing process, but you can still help them do that and help your own body heal by breastfeeding, as long as you're repopulating your good gut bacteria and consuming good probiotics. the baby's still getting that during the breastfeeding process and beyond. So for him, I focused really heavily on my own gut healing and being extremely highly nourished while I was nursing him. So lots of bone broth, lots of probiotic rich foods, and homemade fermented foods like sauerkraut or kombucha or kimchi or kefir, all these different foods to help my own gut bacteria. And then transitioning him into that when he started eating to help rebuild his gut slowly. And it's been a long process for us, but it's been amazing to see. When we first started, if he came in contact with dairy, he would get eczema, he would have digestive problems for weeks, and now it bothers him for half a day, maybe if he has accidental exposure, and then he's fine. So we're seeing huge improvements.
What about expense? Some people might say, it's expensive to eat this way.
That's true, and I say it's a planning thing, because we've been on a really tight budget for a lot of our marriage, and I think it takes a lot more planning and organization to eat on the same budget this way, but it's possible. I know we do a lot of stir fries, which you can use inexpensive cuts of meat and frozen vegetables that you can keep in the freezer, even organic. That's not that expensive to do. And it's easy to cook in less than 30 minutes, which is a bonus if you have small children. So for me, meal planning is what has made that possible for us. I have a rubric that I use every week on what kind of foods I'm going to cook every night. So we'll do stir fries, we'll do salads, we'll do a soup and stew one night. Each night of the week, I already know what kind of food I'm going to cook. And then at the beginning of the week, I just figure out what specific recipes I'm cooking and shop for the whole week at one time to save money and use coupons if it's anything I can use coupons for, or wait till days that I know things are on sale. And we also buy a lot from our local farmers market. And if you're shopping seasonally, even in the winter, you can find a lot of produce, organic produce, at really inexpensive prices in a lot of places.
I'm curious, are your kids aware, your children aware that they eat differently than their friends?
They are, and their friends will actually ask them about it sometimes. Even our neighbors, they'll go over there and they'll be offered like M&Ms or granola bars, and they'll say no thanks. And their friends are like, why? And they're like, well, it's just not that healthy for me. And they don't ever put their friends down, but they just know. Or they'll ask like, do you have any carrots or turkey or anything? Like,
carrots? Their friends are saying, what's wrong with this guy?
But
you said something that's very interesting. Barry Sears calls it, when you eat clean, Barry Sears, who wrote The Zone, and then you eat like a bunch of bread or pasta or whatever, you get an insulin hangover. You feel lousy the next day, and you're less likely to choose that. And you said with your kids, so if they did choose, they're eating clean, and then they eat the M&Ms, and they eat the garbage, the Doritos, the MSG, and they feel lousy.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's what you said?
Yeah, and they notice it. And they definitely, and you have to understand with five so close together, they're very competitive. And like, for instance, my daughter, we all started taking martial arts together. And one of the things in that is you have to climb a rope. And the first time she couldn't do it and her brother could. So she came home and did pull-ups on her bunk bed for a week. And the next time she got up the rope, like, they're so competitive, and they know that if they eat junk, it makes them feel bad and they can't play as hard. And I think honestly, they'd rather play hard.
What about sleepovers? That must be
that.
tough because you're known for the place that doesn't have good food, right?
I should think I can make it taste good. Like, I've got a homemade marshmallow recipe that's actually gut friendly, and it's only got raw honey and gelatin.
Okay.
So I mean, I have some treats that they occasionally get when they have friends over, but yeah, thankfully their friends seem to usually like it, or they're at least intrigued enough that they'll try it.
Yeah, that's a complete myth that healthy food doesn't taste good. So we're going to go on to
Well, there's
Katie's
still a
website.
lot of sugar in the marshmallow and honey, but it's good that you're doing that.
There's
I guess.
but there's fat and there's protein.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, she's going to put a link to everything we talk about. And one thing I'd love you to put on that link is your probiotic marshmallows, because they taste good and you use gelatin in them, right? So they have good protein.
Okay, but here's my biggest thing here with what you're saying. Okay, so most of us know what we have to do, right? So, but if I want to transition I have a stepdaughter. She eats fantastic. She's used to vegetables. My 12-year-old is not. So transitioning him over, because there's two ways to do this. You can either say, hey, you starve him out, put the vegetables in front of him, the lean protein, whatever, he'll eat when he's hungry. That's one way. Or to slowly, taper the good food in. So this is your whole life. I mean, so you tell me what seems to work.
Well, I think at the end of the day, especially at 12, you're going to have to find a way for the children to own it themselves, because especially at that age, I feel like they'll rebel if you try to cold turkey, like you said, change overnight. Just because at that age, everything can be a rebellion. But I think if you use it as an opportunity to educate them and make it a family experience, make every meal a family activity. Let your children be involved in planning the meals and cooking the meals, especially at that age.
Yeah,
A
good
lot of them
point.
really get into the culinary experience. Maybe let the children take over a couple meals a night or a week themselves and let them cook. And even if it doesn't taste the best because they're beginning cooks, you eat it, and let it reverse and let you try new things. And maybe challenge them to find new vegetables they've never eaten and learn how to cook it, or let it become a bonding experience as a family. Don't focus on like you're never going to eat these foods again, but focus on adding in the good rather than cutting out
What
the bad. And
about
just
nutritional supplements for kids?
that is a tough one. Yeah, I'm not a fan of chewable vitamins, but I agree. Unfortunately, with our food supply, there's not always the optimal amounts of everything we need. So we do a lot of bone broth in our family, either in soups or I'll just make egg drop soup for them to drink the bone broth, and that has a lot of trace minerals and vitamins in it anyway. But I actually have recipes for homemade chewable gummy vitamins that are gelatin based, so they're gut healing, and you can add in whatever specific nutrients that specific child needs instead of just getting a cut and dry like
What about, I mean, if they're old enough to swallow a pill, I'm
Mhm.
lucky because my 12-year-old will take fish oils and vitamin C and things like that. Um, what are your thoughts there?
Well, the ones we do every day, even the little kids, is omega 3s. Usually for us, it's fermented cod liver oil. And then in the summer, I like them to get vitamin D from the sun. I much prefer that. But I do make sure we are all getting vitamin D in the winter, even if it needs to be a supplement. Magnesium is a big one for us. But with kids, I prefer to use magnesium oil, which I rub on their feet and then put socks on at night. And it helps them sleep and it's more gentle. They're not digesting it. So that's
Wow.
a
Great tip.
but I really
You're serious about this stuff.
I am. I really think that cliche children are our future. So
As a
I
parent,
agree.
one of my, and I know that I share this same philosophy with Christa, but too many parents now are putting sunblock all over their kids. And this is a big part of being healthy. And I think, and my 12-year-old hardly ever gets sick. I think that they need to develop like a base tan or get some sun every day. What are your
yeah,
thoughts?
that's a soapbox for me too. I definitely agree. In fact, I have a whole protocol in the summer called Eating for Skin Health in the Sun. I'm Irish, and I'm sure you can tell because it's winter. And I could never tan my entire life, and especially in high school when I was eating junk food, I would burn just from looking at the sun. And since switching to a real food diet, and especially taking certain supplements in the summer to make sure I don't burn, I can tan. I've been to the beach for 8 hours and not
Is
burn
that right?
Isn't that speak to the
And I did
I've
the
power
same
never
of
heard of that before.
nutrition?
Now, we should mention, we just had right before you came on, we had a medical doctor, psychiatrist that was saying, kids, there's a link between vitamin D deficiency and depression in kids, and ADD, ADHD. So I'm glad you're on board with this. So they get a little bit of sun every single day. They try to eat right, but I guess it's all up to the parents. You got
It is
to,
up to the parents.
bring
Yeah,
in the
and
good stuff. See, it's easy for Krista because she doesn't have any kids right now that she knows of, right? And
Not that I know of.
and the thing is that people that don't have kids, it's easy. You always want to do something nice for your kid. Okay, so tonight's a treat. We're gonna go get a burger and fries or what? Because this is what happens, right? So I guess you just slowly don't use food as a reward. I try not to.
Well, and you shift the quality. It's got to be a grass-fed burger. You check the oils.
We're doing that.
I mean, we have around here, Burger Lounge is
We go
now
there.
popping up everywhere.
It's expensive, but it's good.
I totally agree with your intrinsic motivation that kids should be intrinsically motivated to make these choices. But to speak to, let's say, somebody like Jake, what if they're already not eating well? How do you make that transition? I've had success having my clients where they get the greens pills, Vitamin Green or something like that, and I have them put it on the underside of the burger because kids will never flip it and look underneath.
Yeah, okay.
And then you slowly shift their biochemistry and they start to crave vegetables. If it's a chicken or egg issue, like how do you get them to want to do
Interesting.
it?
Okay, that's a good one.
It seems to work.
Yeah. I mean, I've switched to the chicken nuggets that I get at Whole Foods that are gluten free. It's kind of a rice on the outside. There's no gluten, and it's chicken breast, and it's organic, no antibiotics, etc.
Clean meats. So
Is that okay, by the way, on your program or no? Like those chicken gluten-free nuggets?
I make everything at home, but I'm sure it's a better choice than restaurants for sure.
or fast food.
Yeah.
So Katie, what about if your kids aren't that healthy and they are getting sick a lot. How do you
And we
prevent?
have 2 minutes. Well, go ahead.
So I know I get this question a lot. When one child is sick, how do you not create this domino effect and make everybody in the house sick? I know you have this kind of elderberry DIY syrup I'd like to know about.
So elderberry became popular back when the bird flu came out years ago. And basically, it's a type of berry that's native to a lot of places, and it can be made into a homemade syrup. Or for my kids, I do the whole gummy bear idea with the gelatin, and it's really good at helping avoid the flu and colds. And so in the winter, we take it kind of preventatively. And I'll share that recipe also. But basically, you just get the dried berries and you cook them down in water, and you add raw honey to make it like a cough syrup, and that's been really effective for us. We also use vitamin C, a lot of people do. And then to keep the air in the house clean, I've diffused essential oils, but we also do salt lamps, which they're negatively ionizing the air and they help kill things in the air. And then we've also used these bamboo charcoal bags that also help absorb things in the air.
I think I just did a segment on Fox on this. I hear you laughing over there, but these are really.
I'm laughing because I'm amazed. I didn't know this lifestyle existed.
Yes.
With the air, I mean, good for you.
But so think about if you're living in the Midwest, if you're living on the East Coast. I mean, they had 20 snowstorms already this year. Then bacteria and viruses are in the air, and so I do the same thing. If you diffuse rose oil and lavender oil, you can get these bacteria and viruses, not to spread.
Okay. No, I believe you. Look, I have an ex-wife, and I feel if I did all those things, I'd lose custody of my kids. They'd think I'm crazy. But
it's off the beaten path.
Slowly get them healthy. This is great stuff. I want to thank you for coming on our show. Very interesting. So you have a blog. People need to follow your blog. Go to your website. You give a lot of recipes and tips and everything else. Christa?
Well, you've so graciously, you're going to have a website, wellnessmama.com/Randy and Christa. So it'll be a recap of everything we talked about. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'll share all the recipes I mentioned so they can find them.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. Thanks for being the massive inspiration you are to so many. You're making huge strides.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. You've been watching the Randy and Christa Show. I'm Randy Alvarez. Christa?
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and thanks for being here. Hopefully you got at least 3 to 5 tips that you can take to raise healthier kids, which is our goal with this show.
And the Randy and Christa Show is news that makes you healthier. We'll see you soon. Wish you good health.